So, where I wanted to start was I don't want to start with the danger that kind of the LGBT lobby presents in culture. I don't want to start there, even though it's important. What I do want to talk about rather is, again, a lot of this is anecdotal, but whatever. A lot of it's not anecdotal. Is the value of heterosexual romance itself, and the obviously the downstream consequences of that, which is children and family dynamics. And it was funny because I think we took like 2 weeks off, right?
Yeah.
And I think after we stopped recording, we were talking a little bit about that movie Nightcrawler.
Yes.
And how I love it. I love it as a piece of art because I think Gyllenhaal is really good, and the woman I'm forgetting her name is quite good. And it's a good movie. It's a good piece of art. And it's funny because I think from a cultural perspective, I don't know. I actually don't know who was it. Terrence Malick? I don't think it's Terrence Malick or Dennis Villeneuve. I forget. I'd imagine the film without knowing. I'd imagine the filmmakers are not right of center. And I think the surface level theme of the film is actually quite scary to me, because what it suggests is like confident, competent individualism is dangerous and scary, and only results in like sociopathy.
I wouldn't say only. He's clearly pretty disturbed from the beginning of the movie.
Well, this is what I mean. Right. But so sure, this is what I mean.
Right.
Like the theme is Jake Gyllenhaal's character is a bad guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And some of the ways that he manifests that evil is by being like confident, competent,
being
individual
capitalist.
Correct.
Yeah, that makes
sense.
sense.
So it's like that like surface level.
I suppose there is part of I could interpret it that way.
So I'm like I kind of know what you're doing. Now, having said that, take the
he exploits the labor of the POC homeless guy.
Correct. Yeah.
He sacrifices him for the business. He denies any and all attempts to unionize or otherwise go into business with other people.
I've been watching movies like this for a long time, man.
You gotta get. At first, I was like, okay, they clearly say, okay, but I can see that.
Nope, that's what it is. Yeah. Now, having said that, but by accident, and there's all of this stuff has unintended consequences. So I know I'll get there eventually, but it's kind of like how like Wolf of Wall Street and the movie Wall Street. Like, that's a movie about Wall Street greed.
Yeah.
But like demonizing Wall Street, but the downstream effect of that is you had 10 million 20-something finance bros want to be Gordon Gekko.
And also like those movies when
so they have the opposite effect. Yeah, it's like no, wait a second, this actually is cool as shit.
Yeah, and at the end of the movie, like guy. Gordon Gekko gets away with it. Like his protege is the one who goes to jail. Like Gordon Gekko's fine, and like when they like get their comeuppance, it doesn't really focus on like what they did and the effect it had on people. It's just it's illegal and they say it's insider trading or they cheated the pension or they short sold or whatever, but they don't actually say what this person did destroyed
hurt this person
and had these consequences. It's the SEC and the feds are after you and you're going to jail and you don't get to hang out in your penthouse.
Yeah, well that also part of that is because the filmmakers do the same versions of the same wrongdoing that they themselves are trying to lampoon. Yeah. Because they are selfish and they are greedy. But anyway, so long story short, and how I'm going to get back to the family, and particularly relationships is where I want to start, is so Gyllenhaal's character should and does arouse feelings in men around being attracted to rugged individualism. Like a lot of people see, so yes, the message of the film and plenty of people see Jake Gyllenhaal as like a dangerous predator. Yes. But I'm positive I know that movie is popular, and it's popular with men because it's not that's not a girl movie. It just isn't. And it's but you know what I'm saying.
I know
in the aggregate.
Yeah.
Do you think
more men would watch it than women?
Correct. And this is where we're going to go because men and women are more similar than they are different, but the differences manifest themselves at the extreme.
Yes.
So anyway, this is a guy's movie, And you see Jake Gyllenhaal become confident. This is a superhero movie. It really is. This is and you're right that he sort of starts with these, he beats up that security guard right at the front of the movie. Yeah. So he kind of always has this in him, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But he's in this shitty apartment. He's looking. He doesn't have direction. He's all potential. Mm-hmm. And then over the course now, and
if you know anything about where he lives in Southern California, that fucking closet he lives in probably costs $2,500 a month.
And it's rough.
Yeah, and it's bad.
Yeah. So what this movie says to young men is that if you harness your potential, you can become a superhero. Really,
a supervillain in this case.
Yes, yeah. You're right. But I think the downstream effect. This is how I see it. Maybe it's because I'm crazy, but I don't think I am. You can become a superhero. You can become super. Mm-hmm. And what that means is, again, I drive a car because it's not because it's flashy and cool, but because I need a job to be done, and I can do it with this tool. Mm-hmm. I'm fast. Mm-hmm. Like I can run. I'm in good shape. Mm-hmm. I have an eye and a talent for this business. I'm able to negotiate my value. That guy goes from a loser to a superhero. Mm-hmm. Now, this movie doesn't directly do it, although another movie, which I really, really love and saw recently, and we started to talk about, American Honey, does it also. Most of the time, the reason for that individual development, not all the time, most of the time, in men, is because of a woman. Mm-hmm. Now, there's a little bit of that in Nightcrawler because there's a little bit of like a romance, it's
rapey
perverted.
Romance.
Yeah.
The rapey blackmail.
Well, that's what I mean. It's not. She's still. It's not romance, but it's a woman.
Yes, and they still frame it as impressing her because like he can go sell his tapes to anybody.
Yeah,
right? Like,
absolutely.
He can go sell.
But it's her.
But he wants to sell them to her.
Exactly. Yes.
And then even after he rapes her via blackmail. They have that scene where he shows up with the video from the cartel house or whatever.
Yes,
and like the romantic music plays, and like she looks aroused.
I was gonna say that
she looks aroused, and I think
the
movie does a good, and she is.
Yeah,
and I think the movie does a good job
because women are attracted to competence.
Yeah, I mean, yes,
it's a nuanced movie.
Yeah, but I think they do a good job of setting up that like this lady's not a great person either.
Absolutely correct.
And, like she is more concerned with ratings and money than human life. So it when you put it in that context, it is more believable that even though this dude is blackmailing her into sex, when he shows up with the fucking gold nugget of death videos, she's still into it because she's not like a normal woman by any means. She's like a fucking vampire, just like the rest of them.
So, but this strikes, and again, I'm coming back.
Not that makes it okay to rape people.
They're
evil.
No, clearly doesn't.
She's kind of evil.
Well, but what the underlying archetypical I guess mess story is that she is a woman and he is a man, and the role of the woman in society, biology, culture, in the aggregate, not everyone, they manifest themselves at the margins, is to develop the potential of men. That is what women do. And the reason they do that is because women are more conscientious, women are more agreeable, and women are biologically designed to have children. Women, being a mother, is all about creating potential and fostering its growth in children, but it's also in men. And men are far less developed emotionally, psychologically, at younger ages than their women counterparts at the same ages. A 10-year-old girl is far more biologically, emotionally, psychologically advanced than a 10-year-old boy.
I don't think it's argued at all.
This is not that's real.
Women mature faster than men,
and there's
in all categories.
And there's a reason for
that.
Have to. That's right.
They have to.
They have to biologically, but they also have to culturally.
Yes.
Because the role of most women in many societies, and that's not to say that they can't and shouldn't develop their own potential, because they should, but the way Western heterosexual romance and relationships began, started, continued, is that women develop the potential for men. And they need to. And without women, men are fucked completely. You do not, it is really, I would find it very difficult to find an example of a man who can reach their potential without the cultivation, support, if you want to put a soft thing on it, of a woman. I think it's basically impossible.
Well, that's why it's necessary to be making the distinction between Western civilization, because I think if you look at
absolutely.
Here's a good example.
I definitely do.
Islamic civilizations,
yep,
right?
Not the same thing.
They do, while the women are still necessary for biological functions, right? I don't think they provide the same level of cultural support.
No,
the men to the women. That is.
That's right.
They're almost like a and it's indentured servant class.
And you know what? It's a worse civilization.
Yeah, it is. It's not. It's not.
it's way fucking worse. The patriarchy exists. Yeah, it's just not here.
Well, yeah, none of the activist left are going to go over to Saudi Arabia or Iran because they'll be thrown in prison.
Or anywhere else except for a Western
and anywhere country. Else, a Western country whose basic values allows you to have these kinds of rights to speak.
That's right. Yep. So that's and I know normally you're.
But I'm agreeing with you. You would be hard pressed to find a source in Western civilization that. Doesn't use women as a basis for the growth of culture.
That's right. Yeah. And it's why. So it's funny. So do you know about this shit like I do? Female dating strategy. Do you know that FDS?
Yeah, on Reddit.
Yep. And there's like a Twitter. It's like kind of this.
It's like a whole thing now.
Yeah. So the other counterpart, which I if I had to pick one, honestly, I'd pick FDS over like the red pill.
Yeah.
Yes, and I'll tell you why. Or I'll try to articulate why.
Sure, I'm not super familiar with FDS anymore.
Yeah. But
ever really.
But here's the thing: it's not a binary choice. I want both of them. They're both. They're for young people, so they're immature in a lot of ways, and obviously, like neither are perfect.
Right.
But so what FDS is female dating strategy. I'd imagine it probably started on Reddit.
Probably.
And it's now kind of in the rest of the social media.
Like Wall Street bets.
Yeah, like it's the rest of, and it's bled into wider internet culture.
Yeah.
And really, so FDS, why I like it so much is it is like real feminism in that it speaks about the differences between men and women, the sovereignty of woman and womanhood, and what that means in the context of dating and sex and relationships. And it means make your man invest in you. It means if you are treated if you're treated transactionally, like it's like block, delete, whatever.
Yeah.
If if you are dating for 5 years and you are not proposed to,
Yeah, you probably should be planning an exit strategy.
Exactly. Get rid of this person.
Yeah.
And that's so correct because again, men are immature, underdeveloped pussies and need women to set these parameters around their relationships and interactions in order to grow and develop into people. They actually do. And when you do that, you you men into, into warriors, into fathers, into successful businessmen, into, you create men as men. And what FDS does is recognize these differences. It doesn't ask women to be men. It tells women that they should be women and that they should be, they should be conscientious. They should be agreeable to the perspective of you allow men to provide for you. So the whole thing, it's like if the man doesn't pay, he's a fucking deadbeat. And that's true, I think.
I don't.
Fine, we can disagree on the specifics. But again, my point is like the instincts around it are really healthy.
I think the man should want to pay.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, in terms of like when I was single and would go on dates, I would always attempt to pay.
And that's what matters.
And if I was going out with someone who was my peer in terms of professionally or maybe not the same level but comparably, I would very much appreciate when they'd be like, no, I want to pay some too. It's all right, well, fine. But now that I'm in a more committed relationship,
right.
and it's fucking I know you, Mr. Big Shot, got a great new promotion, but no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But we split a lot more things.
Sure.
Just in the terms of like more responsible finances.
Yeah.
So like,
yes,
I agree that there should be that like dynamic.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like making the right choices for your relationship and your family, I think it's okay to bend that a bit.
You're definitely right.
But there is, there should be concerns on that because, if it gets to the point where you aren't pulling your weight, that's going to have negative effects on your relationship.
Here's where so now this is different, and you are at, and this is where you are in life. Yeah. So this what you're talking about makes absolute sense.
Yeah.
I'll describe like, so I'm married now.
Yeah.
And my wife hasn't. This is funny, and again, the language needs to be precise. My wife hasn't worked a job that earns her money in about 5 years. Now, we truly, so I do earn the money. They're truly, and we are married, so it's actual. From a legal perspective, would be weird, but whatever. There is no like I pay, she pays. Right. Like practically.
Yeah.
And even if there were a balance sheet scenario where it said, you're on the my
same
income,
sheet now.
But even if we were to split it, like
right.
my income versus her income, the I cannot make the income that I make without her doing the work that does not provide income but allows me to make the income. Right. So it's like there's like no such thing as like I pay, she pay type of thing.
For sure.
But B, it's like this is where, and we mentioned this a while ago. Yeah. Like the whole and this is not it's funny because
that makes sense. I mean, I'm in a relationship that's been about 1.5 years. Yeah. And you've been married for
3 years.
3 years. Yeah. So that makes sense to me. I mean, I imagine that's very similar to how things will go if and when we get married.
Yeah.
We've talked about it, and like she still wants to have her own agency. Has a STEM degree, so she still wants to like do some part-time consulting and like some other stuff. In a perfect world, I make enough money to where she can stay home and get her master's and do some consulting on the side.
We also live differently than not like vastly different. Yeah. But we live differently. Yeah. Than so and I am
absolutely.
I am not saying, although a little bit of me is, but most of me is not saying you should have women exclusively be mothers, wives, etc.
I have not heard you say anything saying that they should be obligated to do that.
And I will not say that.
Just because you say that they're the best at it. Well, they're the only ones who can do it.
They are.
Just because you say they're the only ones who can do it, and just because you say that that's the thing that they per average excel at better than anything else doesn't mean it's the only thing they can do, and it doesn't mean that they're obligated to do it either. You haven't made any of those arguments, although I'm sure people who don't like what you're saying would imply that you are.
Correct. They will put words in my mouth.
Yeah.
But it's really so. Yes. You understand it very well.
Very well.
So and that thing. So anyway. So now the flip side of this. So again, if I had to pick, I don't have to pick one, but if I had to pick one, I would pick female dating strategy for many of those reasons. Now again, there's tons of there are tons of elements and aspects and individual people within the female dating strategy sphere who like get it wrong.
Yeah,
so it
just sounds like a Reddit a subreddit that they made that morphed into other things. It's just basically like telling women to not date shitty men. Is that
yes?
And like they lay out some steps to like how to identify you're dating a shitty man.
Yes.
Well, that sounds good to me. That sounds a lot better than like. And what is the red pill? Is that like men go their own way?
No, so shit? It's different. So this is very fun that I'm explaining these things to you.
I'm enjoying it. The opportunities in which someone schools me on obscure internet culture, it's not often. I like this. This is great.
So it's funny. So
it's like a kid at the aquarium.
Yes. Yeah. Hopefully I won't shit in the tank in front of you.
Whatever.
So
the fish do.
So MGTOW. Yeah. Men go their own way.
I know all about that.
Is fucking so lame.
It's so lame.
The worst. It is the
pickup artists of the next generation.
They are the people that female dating strategy are telling their
women
to avoid. Correct.
Yeah, and then because they're being avoided, they have a persecution complex.
Absolutely, and they become worse.
That they develop on the internet, and they find other people on the internet like them, and it turns into a circle jerk.
And they get way worse.
It's not their fault.
Exactly.
I know. Yeah, it's not your fault that you're a piece of shit that women don't want to date.
Correct.
It's not your fault. It's all them.
Yes, and that's the whole. Yes.
That's so. Like I've said for years. I say this to my girlfriend now that I love. Like the only thing you have to do to like when you're younger get laid, and then when you're older to like go on dates and have a girlfriend is not be an asshole.
I really is. Yeah.
That's all you have to do.
Yeah.
Like you can have a mediocre job.
Absolutely.
Like you can be kind of
you
can be kind of ugly. You cannot have
definitely be ugly.
You cannot have a ton of money as long as you like aren't a total fucking loser.
Yeah.
And you're not an asshole. Like you'll be fine.
So what
you will find a woman.
So
and basic hygiene too is very important. Yep. That's also very important. I think a lot of people miss that part too.
I actually kind of want to talk about that too.
Yeah.
So what you're describing, this is so great because it's I'm so right about this. It's crazy how fucking correct I am. What you just described is potential.
Yeah.
Right? So you cannot have who should not be dated, who should be not an incel, but who should be a celibate. Now again, time changes things. And you can go from having no potential to a little potential to more to developed. And time is its own epiphenomena that I want to talk about because it's so interesting. But what you just described is potential. Now you didn't describe the complete fucking loser because the complete fucking loser cannot date and also shouldn't be dated.
Yeah.
Because they don't have potential. But what you described is potential. And the way you described it was perfect because you do not need, and who women shouldn't, it's why kind of like the sugar baby thing is interesting. And I want to talk it. I actually haven't thought this through all the way, but it's interesting. But I do think it's suboptimal because I don't think women, now there's another side of this because men who get fully developed leave the women who developed them, which is a big fucking problem.
Yes.
But we'll get to that.
Leads to a lot of Reddit horror stories like that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. That's a real problem, and it is a man's issue, and it's men being cowardly and selfish, and anyway. So, but what you did describe, and you described it really, really well, is you do not make a ton of money, but you make some money. You are not completely. You wear clothes. Yeah, right. You're not in great shape, but
you're not obese.
But you could be. Yes, you could be. Yeah. And you hit the nail so directly on the head is because what women are attracted to is confidence and competence, definitely, but because of their station relative to the time of when they meet certain people, is what they're actually most attracted to is potential. And what they're best at is developing that potential and then reaping the future rewards of competency, confidence, etc. And that's why that's the bedrock of, again, like these heterosexual relationships and why they make everyone's lives better.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at that in a more in like the way we're talking about it now. But I mean, even anecdotally, like most people know that like if they try to do something with their significant other and they suck at it, but they just try to get better at it, that's all they want.
Absolutely.
Right? That's all they want. Effort. I mean, I'm sure some people in shitty relationships with terrible people like actually want you to do it perfect, and if you don't do it perfect, they fucking browbeat you all day.
And those people are underdeveloped.
But those people are not good. You shouldn't be in relationships with them. But most people, like that'll resonate on a very personal level. Is that if as long as you're willing to try to get better, whatever like category better is, most people are going to be fine with that.
Yes.
Even if you can't improve that much.
Absolutely.
Because of whatever.
Yes. Yeah. So, and again, it's all it's funny because it's all it's a construct of time. It's a construct of time because it's about investment and it's about future rewards. So I mentioned so MGTOW is like you want to stay away from that.
Yeah, for sure. So how's it different from the red pill?
So good. So yes, this is important. So the red pill, and again the red pill by proxy has
because I know what red pilling is. But I assume you're referring to like a specific.
This is community. This is a specific. This is you're correct. And I will say this. I'll start with the bad. the red pill has a not insignificant portion of MGTOW incel-ness in it by proxy. However, the again the important parts of it, and there are certain members in it who see it correctly. Do not MGTOW focuses on evil women burning vulnerable men.
Yeah,
but it's really just
horse rape.
Yeah. It's right. But what MGTOW is actually saying, if they could tell the truth, is that competent, well-developed women are rejecting losers. Yes. That's actually what's happening.
Yes.
What the red pill says is to those MGTOW people, you are a fucking loser.
Yeah.
Get to the point where you have potential.
Okay. Yeah.
And then you can now begin to develop. You can now then develop that potential to be dateable and have women and have success with women.
Well, I would think that and FDS would complement each other.
So that they should and they actually
ideologically they do. But communities don't.
Correct. Okay. Because they're young.
Yeah.
And because
Reddit is for young people.
And they're immature, and because they are so that's exactly right.
Anyone like over 30 who's seriously using Reddit and commenting and buying awards and like moderating communities, you should stay away from that person.
Absolutely.
Like that's someone who has some demons.
That's a person who has no potential right now. That's not to say they won't in the future, but they don't have any right now.
Or they work in a job with an incredibly inflated salary in an industry like that is 80% finance and 20% product. And they get paid a salary and they work 30 hours a week and they just fuck off on their computer all day and then like write some emails and they make like $80,000. They probably just have a do-nothing job.
Yes.
That's what I always hate to prescribe. But I mean, I guess philosophically they do have no potential. But on paper, they're doing great.
Right.
And it's so much more difficult to say to them, like, have you ever thought you're the bad guy?
Yeah.
Like when you're on Reddit, like manipulating these votes and like forgating people and doxing people and like cancel culturing them. Like, do you ever think you're the bad guy? And they're like, no, I'm not the bad guy. Like, I live in a 10th floor apartment in a major metropolitan city working for a tech company, and I voted for Joe Biden. So, like...
I can't be bad.
I can't be bad. I'm one of the good guys.
Yeah.
So I imagine that there are a lot of do-nothing losers who just, like, you know, live off welfare and moderate subreddits. But I bet there's a lot of successful, in air quotes, people who do it, too.
I think the latter is probably... more likely.
Probably. I mean, poor people don't have time or money to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I think you're more. Yeah. Yes, you're correct about Red. You know.
Sorry, I feel like I keep derailing you. Right?
No, you're fine. You're totally fine. I mean, it's nice because I'm ranting now instead of you.
Yeah, for sure.
But
my dad said, I showed him the podcast. He goes, "It's great, but you gotta let the other guy talk." He's been listening to me talk since I was 3 years old, all day long, every day. So if anyone didn't know when I'm talking too much, it'll be that guy.
No, it's okay. It's okay, and I'm happy to. I'm happy to take. You're better, and I should take the back seat on globalism, neocons,
Fall of the Republic,
that stuff. I'm not as talented at that.
Yeah, and I'm
really
nowhere,
fucking talented on this.
Yeah, I'm nowhere near as versed in Western Civ, Christian doctrine, nuclear family stuff. Right. I'm versed in how people want to destroy it.
Yeah, right. Yes.
But not as much in the founding principles.
So
beyond the founding principles.
So both on paper, and to me, because I'm fucking smart, the red pill and FDS are compatible and should seek one another out often. It is an immature internet phenomena, and so therefore the complexities and nuances needed to exploit the compatibility is not well developed.
Right.
But they are. But they are.
Okay.
So
I imagine they also get pulled in other directions by other subreddits.
They totally do.
I imagine that the incel and the MGTOW subreddits pull guys from the red pill and say, look how crazy these bitches in FDS are.
Yes.
They're not really about this. You're going to get burned. Come with us. And I'm sure that people on like shit Reddit says or like whatever the new subreddit is to air people out goes to FDS and says, hey, look at these guys in the red pill. Look at all the nasty shit they said. And they pull people from each side and they kind of turn a 2 subreddit issue into a 4, into an 8, into a 10 subreddit issue. And at that point, the bots and the astroturfing starts. At that point, the Media Matters and Share Blue, who pay people to sit on there all day, start coming in. At that point, the CCP people who get paid 50 cents a post, they start coming on, and like it becomes a whole thing. So
this is where I'm very good at, like I said, like with the movie Nightcrawler. Mm-hmm. I'm supernaturally good at seeing the underlying elements, archetypes, themes of anything. Mm-hmm. You're just as good at the intelligentsia phenomenon practically that surrounds those themes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what you're just, I could not have just described what you just did.
Yeah.
But it that very well captures the headbutting.
Yeah.
That's what it is. But what I'm saying and what I would present to the world in an effort to not like make the world a better fucking place or some other stupid shit like that, but in order to actually understand what's going on in front of us, you know, in this internet age, is the red pill and female dating strategy are actually real. The themes are really compatible. They're really important. And if we were to listen, quote unquote, to those themes, now everyone's individual and blah blah blah. But if we were to listen to those themes and like we have this really awesome opportunity to integrate these themes on a cultural level, and which is something we did, you know, like with the church and with the family and with the institutions a long time ago. And we have an opportunity to sort of update that to a digital age, but we're just talking past each other.
Yeah.
Those two entities are talking past each other, and then again devolving into the shit swamp that you just described for the reasons and with the applications that you just described. And like that sucks.
Yeah.
You know, because the things that the red pill and FDS are saying to themselves within their tribes would mesh really, really well. And they would also, now there's also a piece of this where, so the piece where I would pick the red pill, but again, it's not really FDS's fault because women are more developed as a standard person, generally, is that the red pill does challenge its users more.
I would imagine so.
And that's a good thing.
And it also, I mean, it seems like if you break down just the basic philosophy of each subreddit, that's sort of the point of the red pill is to challenge its users that to be better.
Correct.
Whereas female dating strategy, along with many of these other female empowerment groups or tropes or whatever you want to call it, is more about insulation from criticism.
That's right.
Insulation from people telling you you're not good enough, which in some cases is warranted.
Yeah.
But I would imagine that the overwhelming majority of people there are saying, no, there's nothing wrong with you.
Yes.
It's that the men aren't good enough, which is often true.
Correct.
But when you have those kinds of like feedback loops, the wrong kind of people who just need positive affirmation for their shitty behavior are going to get in there.
Yep.
And when you have the anonymity of the internet and no reason anyone has to tell the truth ever. I imagine that some of the wrong people are going to get like thrown in there, right?
Yeah, and this is why I'm glad I'm talking to you about this.
Whereas if someone on the red pill was lying for clout, they would just be like, "Oh, I can do 500 push-ups." And someone will be like, "Do 1,000, pussy."
Yes,
you know what I mean?
That's exactly right.
And then it doesn't matter if they're actually only doing 250 or 500. They're still being told do more.
Yes.
Like, why are you coming here and telling us about it?
Exactly.
Go do more.
Yes.
And the bullshit feedback loop only serves to like further the philosophy of some sort of organization like that. Whereas the feedback loop for FDS kind of does the opposite.
Yes. And so you're hitting the net. You're helping me suss out these problems.
I would also argue that any women on FDS who are like accomplished boss bitches, right? Mm-hmm. They don't need an internet feedback loop to tell them that.
That's right.
Just like alpha Chad guys don't need the red pill to tell them to keep achieving.
Exactly.
But the people who are kind of like stuck in limbo.
This is what I mean. It's a young thing. These are for young people
the women who are stuck in limbo. They do need people like FDS to say, no, your high school boyfriend's a shithead.
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean? And like the guys in limbo say, no, you don't just have baby fat. You need to go work out.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, so I can see how both could be both at its core very helpful, but you always are going to have elements that come in and like abuse the whirlpool to stroke their own dicks.
Yep. So the red pill. So you're really understanding this. So the red pill has the elements of the MGTOW women hating problem.
Right.
That's their.
That would be their.
That's their kryptonite.
Achilles heel.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
Female dating strategies kryptonite is. It is true and correct, and in a majority of times, and it also is helpful for I don't want to say that there aren't necessary elements, particularly for women, for like non-judgmental, universal, unconditional support. Mm-hmm. That's okay that exists. Mm-hmm. Now but there also needs what FDS is missing is it is true that. You are good enough, and you are good enough from like a cheesy perspective, like from a superficial perspective, and it's also you are good enough because you are a woman and you have so much biological, cultural advantage in your ability. So women like naturally develop men, and they're so fucking good at it. They don't like need a lot of help in development. Now, having said that, there are women, and they're like you just described very well. There are women on FDS and in the FDS sphere that do need to develop into developers. You have immature women from a lib, and it's actually really good because FDS describes this from like a lib. So it's like liberal feminist. So it's like lib fem versus like FDS. So lib fems say, "Oh, I should pay for the man." Lib fems. Well, and this is where it intersects with the trans thing. Lib fems say, you are a better man than a man. And
That's not true.
And FDS is there to say, no, that's not how it works. Yeah. But because FDS is such a supportive space, it allows for too much latitude to say things like, yeah, you should be the one. Yes, you can pay. You can do it all. Sure, why not? You can definitely like go join the army if that's what you want to do.
Are you telling me that a community of women is a hug box where they all pat each other on the back and reassure each other, and a community of men are a bunch of vulgar assholes who call each other pussies and use that as fuel to outcompete one another?
This is what I'm saying. Yeah.
When has that ever been represented?
That's right.
Represented in the history of human civilization? I don't know. Every time.
That's right.
Every single time, with the exception of like the Isle of Lesbos
for
like 700 years or however long they were there.
So this is well, no, you're right. And this is again, you're describing from a functional perspective the underlying themes that I'm describing.
Yeah.
So FDS would do better if it said things like, no, you shouldn't like. It's not okay. FDS does not a ton of, but it does enough to be dangerous. You don't need a man.
Yeah.
And that's not true.
It's not true. I mean, I imagine the people on sites and communities like that who say that are also like, not all of them, but the ones who are getting close to 40 probably wants kids someday in their dating profile.
I would go ahead and say all.
Yeah, I mean,
if we're being adults,
probably a good percentage.
It just is. It is truly a statistical anomaly.
All you single guys at home, download Bumble or Hinge. You can use Tinder, but that's mostly just like young girls trying to get dick. You know? So like use Bumble or Hinge and go on there and set your age from like, I don't know, 35 to 45. And you will be amazed at how many people have the tag that they want kids someday. Which is fine. Which is great, and like I think you should have kids. Yes. But you should recognize how like the probability of healthy conception and birth is lower now. It's absolutely. And my mom was old when I was born. My mom was about 35 when I was born.
Yeah, that's
my parents waited a little bit longer because my dad was a crazy person and my mom was an executive, and like they did like the very much like 90s liberal thing. You know what I mean?
But like, what happened is your successful, competent mother.
Yeah.
Pulled the potential out of your loser father, which is what I'm talking about.
She said, if you don't stop drinking and you don't stop doing fucking crime with your buddies, Like, we're not doing this. I'm going to leave and I'm going to find somebody else and I'm going to start a family. And he was like, okay, wow, I guess I better get my shit together. And he did. I'm so
right about all this.
And he did.
Yes, right. Yes. And that's that's the most, I don't want to say biological. That's the most, and this is an imperfect term, that's the most natural story there is.
Yeah.
Because it's women who are more, I don't know if it's God or nature or whatever, women are more inherently developed at being developers, and men are only potential.
Yeah.
They're like, this is what, it even goes deeper than that because...
Why do you think we used to kill each other? It was the easiest thing. It was the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, that's right.
Why would you stay home and build a mill when you could just go kill the guy next door and take his? Well, he already built it.
So the interest,
I understand a lot of people who did build the mills would then go kill each other in the summer. Because if you don't, they're going to come kill you and take your mill.
Absolutely. So it even does go... I just now used the term natural, and that's not a great term, but I used it instead of biological. But there is a biological piece, and I'm probably going to fuck this up, and I know I always suck his dick, but Peterson describes this the best way I've heard, is that women are the gatekeepers of the sexual and reproductive hierarchy, obviously. And what they do is
that's a recent development.
They set...
No, it's not. Human history.
No, it isn't. It's really... So here's the thing, it's really not, and I'll tell you why. Or I'll try to describe it why. Because... Okay.
Only if they could run faster.
No, that's not true. No, that's not true because... No, that's not true. That's not true. Okay, so... Because there's a reason that animals and men fight each other for women's approval. And the reason is because women select the most competent mate. It's not because I'm missing a step here, and this is imperfect, but it's not because men want to dominate that they get the women. It's that women want men to dominate.
Yeah.
That and over time, the structure of biology bends to the fact that women select the most powerful and have the most dominant traits.
So here's what
So that's why I say women are the gatekeepers of...
I agree.
Yeah.
When, and not to turn into some, fucking lefty over here.
No, it's okay.
But that is true when women are allowed to make their own choices about who they marry and who they reproduce with. And for the vast majority of human civilization, both Western and Eastern, they haven't been given that option. So, right? So, the 12-year-old girl that gets married to a cleft palate Habsburg prince, she didn't really have a choice.
Yep.
And she's going to be a princess in a foreign country, but she is not the gatekeeper of her marriage or reproductive organs. And I don't even think you need to go to the royal level, in terms of how marriages were decided up until fairly recent history. There wasn't a large degree of choice in it for the woman. So unless they had found a way to establish themselves in where they'd have a say in the matter. And I don't think Victorian skullduggery, where they write letters and sabotage people so that the man she's supposed to marry is no longer able to marry her, so she can really marry the other guy. I don't really think that counts because it's not her being able to say, no, I don't want to marry you. I want to marry them. So I do agree with you, but I think it's a recent development.
So and this is where I'm not. I have to think about this more and flesh this out more.
Yeah.
Or maybe I just have to refer to the phenomena that I'm talking about.
And so, ultimately, the woman could just decide to yeet herself off a cliff. And in terms of just deciding on being a gatekeeper.
And this is why take out. So the biology or the cultural phenomena is downstream from the biology.
Okay.
Eventually.
Okay, I got you now.
What I'm talking about at its core is that what I'm talking about is the fact, why does dominance matter? And it doesn't matter between men. It only matters in pursuit of the woman. And the biological without women, there is no dominance hierarchy. I'll put it to you that way.
Okay.
And what that means is not that any one individual woman has the sovereignty and the agency to sex select mates.
Okay.
But what it does say is that the feminine, ethereal conceptualization directionally sex selects men. And that's why it's so important going back culturally that we harness the fact that women and men interact together to form unions.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that ultimately is that it's a math problem if women are only interacting with women and men are only interacting with men, or if they interact past themselves. So I don't mean that sex selection happens from an agency perspective, although I do think there's some of that. It's just sex selection happens as a math problem.
Okay.
And the beginning of the equation starts with the woman.
Okay.
That makes
sense.
That's my point. And what you're right that we haven't done a good job of it up until very recently around speaking and acting the sovereignty selection mechanism of women. You're right about that. What I'm going to struggle to articulate and will sound so the point that kind of Peterson makes that I will make clumsily is that there is a patriarchy, but it was far more cooperative than it was top-down forced onto women.
Yeah.
That women participate in the quote-unquote patriarchy. It is to the benefit of all humanity that women stay home and raise children and men fight wars and do stuff.
Yes.
So the patriarchy in that element is the story of it, if you had to pick one, is cooperation, not coercion.
Yeah.
It's wrong to say that men forced women to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Predominantly, men and women worked together to achieve certain outcomes.
Yeah.
And we are still doing it now, and because it's just so it's some of the thing that you just described.
There are policies being put in place by certain countries that could be adopted in the West to promote these things, and they're not.
Yeah, that's right.
You have Eastern European countries that are giving people zero interest loans for single family homes.
Right.
They're giving people bonuses for kids.
Yes.
Up to $40,000-$50,000.
We used to do more of that here with earned income tax credit and some other things, and I actually don't know but you're right. And
I would imagine that somewhere along the way, along with all the trade deals and stuff like that, it got written into those when they fucking axed everybody's benefits and pension. I'm sure that those were one of the things that got eliminated from the tax plans within the last 70, 80 years since they've been fucking it all up.
Yeah. So where it's like an opportunity for what I think we haven't done well enough, I guess, on my side. Because I still the conservative side. We do. It's important, and we need to do it. But you're better at it than I am. We do need to call out the dangerous predatory LGBT phenomena. We do. But what we need to do more of is saying hey guys, find a woman sorry, I take it back. Actually, the exact opposite. Hey girls, find a man who has potential, not a shithead. Develop him, marry him, make him develop his potential. Have your children together, not his children. And then teach your sons and daughters to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And you know who does that? Women.
Yeah.
Because you know who sucks at it? Men.
Yeah.
So we don't do enough of and simultaneous, and this is why I love FDS so much, is because I'm a man saying that. Women should be telling that to other women. And that's and all those and you know what you know what happens when you do that? You have people when that happens, you have people who are self-sufficient. What happens when people who are self-sufficient? They don't love big government bullshit.
No.
You know what happens when they're self-sufficient? They don't ask for higher taxes. You know what they don't do? They don't They believe in border walls because they have shit to protect.
They don't advocate for policies that increase crime.
That's right.
They don't advocate for policies that hurt their local economies.
Absolutely.
They don't advocate for the dilution of public school systems. Although government schools in general are fucked.
They are.
Anyone who's doing even a half decent job raising their kids now realizes that.
That's right. So this is where it's like we often talk about like, let's call out how fucked things are, and let's warn of the consequences. Revolution, velvet underwear, all that shit, which is appropriate, and we should do. We should not stop doing that. We need to do that. But what I'm saying is, like, you want to be really fucking radical? Get married to someone of the opposite sex and have children.
Yeah, did I send you? Yeah,
know what I mean? It's like
if you show a picture, like a '50s Beaver Cleaver style ad picture of like a family and 2 kids and like a yard and a house and a picket fence, that is now right-wing extremism.
That's right.
That's right-wing extremism.
I know that.
99% of human history is right-wing extremism.
That's why I'm very confident in saying, like, I'm as fucking radical as you are, but it's through that shit.
No, I mean, I am
not that we need to, like, compete with each other.
No, not at all. I mean, I've made it very clear that I am not a fan of modern conservatism. I've made that infinitely clear.
Yes.
But having said that, conservatism has become the new counterculture. Yeah. What I am doing as like a populist, quasi-anarchist is, ironically, much closer to the pulse of what everyone is feeling than like traditionalist conservatism.
I know. That's why I think I'm more radical than you.
In a way you are. In a way you are. In terms
Again, not that I like need to
absolutely. And I think that each of our views on culture are radical for different reasons.
Yeah, that's right.
And that in the current context, like the shift of the Overton window, your version would be considered more radical.
I know, which is nuts.
Because people would look at me and they're like, well, he wants fully automatic weapons and be able to buy thermite and wants to disband the CIA and the FBI and balkanize, but at least he's not really into Jesus.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I know.
Like, they'll say that.
I know that.
And then I will go on here and I'll talk about firebombing the Pentagon.
Yep.
And you'll talk about, like, all your dad shit and your Jesus stuff, and they're like,
they're more afraid of me.
And it's like, this guy wants to start a holy war.
They're more afraid of me.
He wants to start a holy war, and I'm like filling Molotov cocktails.
They're more afraid
and
of
waving
me.
the black flag. And,
I know.
And they're screeching at you because you said faggot.
I know. They're more afraid of me. They're more. I'm telling you.
They are. You're right, dude. You're right, bro. You're right. Again, and the government's going to come for both of us.
I know.
So it doesn't, the meme with...
And they're coming for me first.
They are coming for you first. It's like the meme with Coach K from the March Madness walking into the locker room and he's shimmying.
Yes,
all the athletes go crazy. It's like me and the boys walking into the gulag.
Yes, right.
After Kamala declares her 3rd term.
Yeah.
Like that's what it's gonna. You'll already be there. You'll already be there.
Welcome.
You'll have the run of the place.
I'll welcome you, exactly.
They'll have found us in the backwoods, fucking running Mel Gibson Patriot style shit.
I know.
They will have thrown us in there with you.
Yeah, for sure, bro.
So this is
They're
what
coming for you first.
Yeah, and this is what I'm. And this is what again. All this stuff comes down to the start of that is speech, and and this is why I'm more like it's like if I have to pick one and they're the same thing and you can't divorce them because they are the same thing. I get it. All that is definitely true.
Yep.
But it's like the first thing I'm dying for is that First Amendment. That's the first thing I'm dying for. The next one is the second, and it's actually a really good kind of divide.
Second comes before the first. And the reason we have the first is the second, baby.
This is what I mean. Yeah. You're right about that. Yeah. But it's like intellectual.
I picked number 2 because
I hear you.
If you have a choice,
I really and truly hear you.
And this is a magical thing that doesn't actually happen. You have 2 buttons, and one of them deletes the First Amendment, the other one deletes the second. If you delete the first, then everyone just picks up their guns, and we go and we take it, and we get a new one.
Right.
If you delete the second, what are you gonna do?
So, I'm gonna. This will be clumsy, and
your
argument will be better right now because it is a better argument.
Yeah.
But I still feel the other way in that, and I won't describe this well. This is a shitty analogy, and you will laugh at it. The same way stupid people argue that you can't fight tanks with Chinese AKs.
Mm-hmm.
And how that's not true, and how you definitely can.
You could.
And how we do all the time.
Yeah, you can make homemade explosives, put it in a tube sock, cover it in tar, and stick it on the tank.
That's what
the Russians did throughout World War II.
The overwhelming evidence of all... The rule is if you have the Chinese AK, you will beat the tank.
Yeah.
That's the rule. So my analogy is that if you have speech, you will beat the Chinese AK. I don't know how. I'm not gonna... I don't have a good, like I said, I don't have a good way to articulate this right now.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that I'm right. Maybe I'm not, but I feel that I'm right. And I say, if you have the speech, you can work around the no guns.
I disagree.
That's like, I hear you.
There is. Do
you know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying, and I think there is a potential in that scenario, and you can look to a lot of countries that don't have a Second Amendment that did revolutions or transfers of power. Very few of those were peaceful. Almost one of the only ones I can think of is Czechoslovakia.
Yeah,
that we talked about a few times. There's probably one or two other ones. Libya was another one.
Yeah,
when Gaddafi. I mean, there was some bloodshed, but in terms of it was the peaceful revolution. They wrote about it in all the newspapers. Like there aren't many examples of that. And typically, when these populations are disarmed, you have a period of extreme suffering. Before speech and art and culture is able to catch up and overwhelm the state propaganda.
You're right.
And I think that the preservation of things like the Second Amendment and in general lessens that period of suffering.
I don't want to get rid of the Second Amendment.
Yeah, I know you don't. I'm not saying you do. I'm not saying this is a constant argument between Republicans and libertarians. Right? It's a constant thing. Between anyone who's pro-liberty and anyone who's pro-government, regardless of your political stance, right? Having the arms lessens that period of suffering in the chance that there is some sort of civil war or government oppression. The pen is mightier than the sword, and that's great. But if the government's kicking down your house and killing you before you can write your nasty little article on Substack, I don't really think it matters.
I understand. I stick by it, but I understand.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and that's again, that's where I think this.
That's why in many states like Massachusetts, Maura Healey passed an arbitrary ban. I'm very sorry your son died in a mass shooting, Maura Healey, but it doesn't make you an expert on firearms.
Is that what happened to her?
I believe so. Yeah.
Oh, is it? I didn't know that.
I believe her son died in a mass shooting, and that's why she became a firebrand.
I was going to say that would at least intellectually make sense.
It emotionally makes sense. Intellectually,
you're right.
Intellectually, it makes no sense, and I will die on that hill.
Better word. You're right.
It costs $800 to $1,500 to buy a rifle in New Hampshire. It costs probably $3,000 to $5,000 in Massachusetts. It creates a class barrier to self-defense.
Yeah, all I was saying was I didn't
Yeah, no, I'm getting way off base. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth.
Well, no. I thought it for her because she's the worst AG in the country.
Yeah,
it's not close. I had thought that was simply. Progressive ideology, but if there's
it could be that too.
It also does, you're right that it doesn't excuse it, but that's just interesting to me. Yeah. At least I can understand that.
Does that mean that white nationalists whose sister or wife got raped by a bunch of black guys are now allowed to does that mean their policies are right?
It's an excellent point.
Does that mean that all their policies are correct because one of their loved ones was harmed by a certain group? I don't think it does.
It's period, end of story.
That's it.
Obviously. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what I wanted to what I really wanted to flesh out, because again it's the underlying thematic story around today's radicalism is heterosexual, is the family, and before that, it's heterosexual romance.
Yeah. I mean,
and before that, it's heterosexual selection pressure.
It's more, without, like I said, we're trying to keep it in the more positive, productive light. It's more important than ever with the state of the nation and the world that we're developing our young people to make them independent, to make them strong.
Yep.
And for whatever reason, we are not doing that.
Yeah.
And we thought we had, right?
Yeah.
I'm a millennial. You're a millennial too, right?
Yeah,
I think you're an old millennial. I'm a young millennial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think millennial starts at 85 and I'm 89.
Yeah, so we're millennials.
And you're 92?
Yeah. All our schools did participation trophies. Everyone's going to be an astronaut or a president. Whether or not your parents did is another thing. We were culturally raised in the helicopter parent, bulldozer, participation trophy generation, right? And like boomers have a lot of fun saying this, like while they're living in like a 5-bedroom, 3-bathroom house that they afforded on a tradesman's salary. Right?
Yes. Yes.
I think it's fine, but like the disparity is there. We were, and a lot of us took longer to actualize. Right?
Yeah.
A lot of us took longer to develop. We took longer to actualize. And I'm not saying that we all should have knocked up our girlfriends at 18 and moved into a shitty apartment.
Exactly. Yes.
But like,
some of us should have, and it would have been the best thing that ever happened to us.
Yeah, maybe. But we've become like put in such a bubble and like infantilized. And like I say that about myself. Like I had a sheltered childhood because my parents had really traumatic lives, right? And as a result, they tried to shield me from a lot of like the world's problems. And when I was young, I was overweight, I was unhealthy, I had a real chip on my shoulder about anyone who was trying to help me. I thought that they were criticizing me and putting me down and telling me I wasn't good enough, and I'm sure sometimes they were, but I know that in a lot of those instances, these were just people who wanted me to be better, and they knew that I would be happier if I was better, whatever better means, whether that's smarter, in better shape, less angry, whatever, drinking less, smoking less, partying less, whatever it is, these people just wanted me to be better. And I was too wrapped up in my own ego and self-importance and arrogance, really, to like recognize that I needed to change.
Well, you're smart, and it's dangerous. It can be a real prison being smart.
Yeah, and I spent a lot of my 20s, like I'm 28 now, just lost. Just like going from like shitty job to shitty job, making above average money, but like nothing I could start a family, nothing I could buy a house. Not that I wanted to, because I was more concerned with hedonism, right? I wasn't fucking, shooting meth and shit like that. But like I was partying, I was smoking, I was drinking, I was going out 3, 4, 5 nights a week, and like I was spending all my money, buying a bunch of shit that I didn't need. And this is true for so many young people.
It's the standard.
It's the standard.
Yeah.
It's, you're fine, you're not doing anything wrong, the world isn't fair, and it's not fair. And like that's something we should...
It's not fair, and it's not fair in not the ways they're telling you.
It's not equitable. It's different than... The left is saying it's not equitable. Not everyone gets an even portion. It's like, well, you're not supposed to. Because the world isn't fair.
You can't.
And so young people are being told that
because we have diversity and people are different.
Right. That there are all these systems that have been built up to where the world doesn't work and it's not going to work and there's not really anything you can do about it, but you're still awesome and perfect. Right? And that's like a really dangerous, like nihilistic concoction. And the only light in which improvement is advocated is broken down along racial, gender, sexuality, religion, and the improvement and the elevation and the development of certain groups is prioritized over others, while at the same time perpetuating a culture of hedonistic nihilism.
Right.
And we wonder why we have these fucking black-eyed TikTok kids who, like, I don't know how to use a potato peeler or some shit like that. You know what I mean?
Celebrate their incompetence.
And celebrate it. And I learn shit every day. Like, I'm almost 30 years old, and I learn basic shit that my parents probably learned when they were 12 years old. Right? Because, like, my mom was one of 9 kids, and her mother said, if you want to eat dinner, you better fucking get in the kitchen and help me cook. Right? So, like, I'm, like, learning how to fucking cut potatoes from my girlfriend.
Sure.
And she's just like, you really know how to fucking do this, dude? And then, on the flip side, we go on a road trip, and I don't have to look at the GPS or the maps because I know the roads.
Right.
And she's like, this is magic. How are you doing this?
Yeah,
like,
right.
How do you not know how to read road signs?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, there's all sorts of, like, different ways that we are inadequate.
Yep.
And it's important that we address those inadequacies to be better people. But for whatever reason, either they don't want you to do that, or they're reclassifying what inadequacy really is.
Yeah,
and they're creating the definition of inadequacy based on inalienable characteristics. and they're telling other people who are inadequate that it's not your fault.
We've changed. This is another Peterson ripoff. I apologize. I'm just parroting a lot of his points. However, we changed the institutional cultural narrative from responsibility to rights when the story of competency and fulfillment and meaning, not happiness, is about you will never be happy with rights. You can't be happy with rights. You are only happy with responsibility. Responsibility is the only methodology we can use to find a meaningful existence. Period. End of story. This is a hill I will die on.
I can see that. I mean, sorry, do you have more?
Nope, that's fine. So, well, what do you think of that?
Well, I don't disagree. I think I look at it a little bit in a different way in terms of, is it direct happiness or is it happiness derived from the situations you're in and the life you live? I think I'm going to go with the latter. Yeah. And here's how I explain it. The gun thing.
Sure.
We have 400 million plus guns. We have a whole gun culture. We have everyone talking about pry it from my cold dead hands. We have everyone talking about the government's never going to take my shit. And they don't do anything. They don't do anything.
Right.
We have all these guns. We have all this power. Every simulation the government has ever ran says that if even 2% of Americans rise up and march on the Capitol, it's done. It's all over. They can't do anything. We could very easily stop all of this.
Yeah, that's right.
We could rise.
Okay, I see where you're going.
I don't have to get to the gun thing. Let's COVID lockdowns.
Yeah. You're right.
A country that is so is so postured on how much freedom and liberty, and we stand up to tyranny. And even if that's only 42% of the country that voted for Trump, if you fucking believe those numbers, I got a bridge to sell you.
Yeah.
Even if it's only 42%, 74 million, 10% of that is what, 7.4?
Yeah.
What if 7.4 million armed people showed up in Washington?
Yeah, that's right. It's over.
And they said you're not gonna you're not going to give my kids hormones without my permission.
That's right.
Like, you're not going to draft my daughters into the military as the ADL just petitioned the Supreme Court, if you saw that too.
Right.
Like, you're not going to do this. We're not going to let you.
Right.
They couldn't stop it.
That's right.
No amount of stories in the New York Times about the fascist takeover, like no amount of opining from lefties on Twitter, no amount of safe space proclamations from AOC and Nancy Pelosi, nothing would stop it.
Yes.
And they don't do anything.
Right.
So you can have the rights, and if you abandon your responsibility to yourself and your family and your nation, you won't be happy.
Well,
you're gonna watch the slow decay of everything you love. Because it's not that you don't have the responsibility; you've either abandoned it or ignored it.
So you're exactly. I think you're proving proving that point. Yeah. You're proving exactly.
I had to think about it for a second. Yeah, but I'm agreeing.
Absolutely, you cannot. There's no such.
If you have free speech and you don't bother and go out to speak out against things, what good is it?
It's responsibility, not rights.
If you have a Fourth Amendment and you allow the government to spy on you for 20 years, what good is it?
Exactly, because there's no meaning in rights.
Yes.
There just isn't any. There's only meaning, by definition.
Your rights are what the government tells you they are. And we talked about this before. The Constitution is a gun-free sign.
It is, for conservatives.
Or a gun-free zone for conservatives. Like, your rights are what the government tells you they are. And when they tell you your rights are different, if you're not willing to stand up to them and stop them, they change.
And here's... So... We have
the government does not decide our rights. We have our rights.
That's right.
But they don't seem to respect that.
No, and it's our responsibility.
Or believe in it.
Well, and it's your responsibility to exercise rights.
Yes.
Rights are not like granted or top down.
No, they don't radiate off you like an aura.
They can only be manifested when you wrangle your responsibility and act on it.
Yeah.
So and again, this is where again I'm. The joke is like I'm more radical than you or whatever. But I am. Could I or we or all of us? I hear you about this. It's funny and it's great to hear you like talk these things out, and this is why it's important and it's a part of the responsibility. I know what you're saying, and I think you can do it. If you peacefully show up, if 7.4 million people peacefully show up to the Capitol armed and don't allow this, that is intellectually something I support. It is something I support.
said they show up and they tell the government, you're not doing this. I didn't say they show up and commit violence.
That's right. Yeah, I agree.
I said they show up and they say, you're not doing it. You're fucking bitch-ass 2,500 National Guard troops without any bullets aren't going to do anything.
Yeah.
And you're not going to do it.
So this is what. Just let me. Yeah. I'm for it. I get it. My version of that I think because that's like it's not. It's a tragedy that it's not happening, and I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm resigning myself to the fact that that's not happening, and probably won't happen soon. So I'm resigning myself.
Oh, I think it might. I think if they try to pack the courts, I don't want to. If they do some other things, they might.
I hear you. I don't want to get hung up.
Okay.
On that. I don't want to get hung up on that part. Yeah. My version of that is this podcast.
Yeah.
And it is living the life that I live. Because it's countercultural and revolutionary. And because I have 2 children, I have 2 male sons, and we may have more.
You got to be very specific today. Male sons, not female sons.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes. Sorry. Oh, you're right.
It can go any way. You can have male sons. You can have female sons.
I have 2 sons.
Male daughters.
You're right. I have 2 sons.
You can have non-male daughters.
Yes, I have 2 sons. Yeah. And my responsibility that I am currently finding meaning in, and again, part of this goes back. Part of it is because I'm generally agreeable. I'm not predisposed to negative emotion, etc. But my responsibility and how I'm manifesting it and how I'm exercising it and pushing it into the world. And it's also why I don't have a good argument for it. Your argument is better. Why I'm exercising the speech argument here, and I live it and speak it. I speak this way at work, generally. I mean, I'm a little...
You have to be professional.
Obviously, you're a professional.
You still have to
But I speak this way. Everyone knows I voted for Trump.
Yeah.
I've had a Trump sign on my lawn, all those things. So what I'm saying is this is this, and I feel when we do this and when we post it and I send it to friends, and I got, one of our friends, I still want to stay in, we're not there yet. I'm getting to where we don't have to be anonymous. Because that's the next phase.
Yeah.
But again, I give this, my boss has heard this.
Yeah.
And we get good feedback, from our friends and acquaintances. This is not, obviously in a lot of ways, this is I like the sound of my voice. I think I'm talented. I think you're talented. This is like
I definitely like the sound of my voice.
An ego. This is like an ego thing.
Yeah.
It's also the manifestation of responsibility.
Yeah.
In the thing I'm most passionate about, which is speech.
Yeah, I think there's another, it's like a
and that feels way better than someone telling me you did a good job and you're good enough.
Yeah,
I agree. Means nothing to me.
No, it doesn't do
this
anything.
Means
empty
everything
praise.
to
empty praise is empty praise.
That's right.
But I mean, on the back end, just to
do you know
clarify,
what I'm saying?
I do.
Yeah.
We do need to be. I myself and everyone of like mind needs to be careful, because very often the people who are spurring you to the 7 million person march, they're not filling the Molotov cocktails.
Definitely.
They're not filling mags. They're not covering their face and buying a burner phone.
Right.
The people who are trying to spur you to violent action are either A, not doing them themselves, or are actively interested in getting you, ruining your life.
Oh, yeah.
Whether that's by killing you or maiming you or getting you arrested and thrown in prison for 10 years, that's very important to say. So I am not advocating anyone do that.
I know.
I'm merely talking about the logistical capabilities.
I know what you're saying.
Of the people to rise up against the government and say enough is enough.
Yes.
Right. And on the going more to what you said about First Amendment and using that as a vehicle for change. I forget who it was, but I don't want to. I think it was a conservative pundit, talk show host, Twitter guy said if you really want to fight this new federal overreach, this new liberal monoculture, go back to teaching prayer in schools. and I don't
totally.
I'm not a religious person.
Completely.
I'm not a religious person, and I don't endorse that because of the God aspects, but I do endorse it in the terms of civil disobedience to the federal government on a community level.
Absolutely.
And if you are in a community that has a school board that's run by a majority that supports bringing prayer back into schools, well, that's the game you have started playing.
Absolutely.
That's the game you have started playing when you had these school boards get infected with leftists and fucking neo-communists who are who are pushing the Black Lives Matter stuff. You can find videos about this on Twitter. There's a big fat white bitch singing a nursery song. If you don't believe in Black Lives Matter, please don't teach. Da-da-da. Yeah, and she teaches fucking 7-year-olds and shit. if you're going to do that, if you're going to infect and fill your school board with your fucking globo homo bullshit and say, sorry, we have the majority, don't be surprised when people in Kentucky and Ohio and the Midwest and the South do the same fucking thing. And I heard that and it made me rethink my whole thing. It's like that is going to be way more effective than January 6th was. We can already see what January 6th did. I don't think it was an insurrection. I don't think anyone in Congress was unsafe. How do you have an insurrection when everyone leaves their guns at home?
I'm glad it happened.
But I'm glad it happened too. But all it did is it gave a lightning rod for the opposition to demonize any sort of nationalistic or anti-election fraud movement as insurrection.
No one was more happy about January 6th than Nancy Pelosi.
Absolutely.
No, that was absolutely. They were salivating.
And it gave them the opportunity to criticize mass gatherings and protests as dangerous, where they were too chicken shit to do it for BLM for 150 days.
Correct.
Right? So all that is to say, a conservative religious community in the Midwest teaching prayer in schools and forcing the federal government to send agents down to stop it is a much more powerful act of disobedience than January 6th was. And it goes back to what we were talking about with MLK and Malcolm X, right?
Are you me?
Yeah, right?
This is what I'm saying.
It comes back to that. And I think that's... I always try to be consistent, right? And like, as much as I think of myself as a radical and a firebrand, like, I am able to look at things objectively and say, okay, I might have thought that was badass, but let's real politic here for a minute and like see what's really happening. And, you know, conservatives will have their tombstone say, imagine if the roles were reversed, you know?
Yes.
Like, it doesn't serve us any good to talk about like the hypocrisy and how it's not really, I mean, it does to red pill people, right? So like, but in terms of causing change, like on an institutional level, I think the people we red pill are most likely just going to go back to their lives and not listen to the news, right? They're not going to decide, you know what, let me go buy an AR-15 and march to Washington, D.C.
And again, it's not just good for your soul individually, which it will be. And again, when you have a good functioning soul, which I believe in, you cannot become corrupted. It's just by the nature of what I mean. And when I say things like having kids was the most important thing in my life, not because like I superficially love them or like I get pleasure out of them or whatever. I do, but that's not the important thing. And it's also not the important thing about like I pass along my genes. Again, those are all important. It's the development. It's the fact that in order to have kids, I needed to have a functional relationship with a woman. In order to have a functional relationship with a woman, that woman needed to mature me. Because you talked about how you were a shithead in your 20s, early 20s. I was just as big of a shithead, if not way more malevolent. And I have this is part of the reason I'm religious, is because I had a lot of malevolence in me. And I have a mean streak in me. And that was partially, and it's a work in progress, and it's a concept of time. I've been civilized out of that by the woman that I've partnered with. And and all of those things happened, and those things resulted in children, and children continued to civilize me. And children actively continue and force me to... I could intellectually be successful, but nothing can force you to be successful and actualize like having children. So when I say things
There's lots of successful people that turn 40 and jump off a building.
Absolutely.
Happens all the time. And some of them have kids.
Yeah, that's right.
Some of them are single.
Yes. So my point is, if you really want to inoculate yourself, if you really want to be radical, and I get to this, and I love that. I haven't heard that. The prayer in school thing, because what prayer in school, what religion and even dogmatic religion, they're two different things, and we can go between the nuances, but whatever. Religion in general, again, only happens because of heterosexual relationships and the interaction between the sexes and the interaction between the sex selection, women to men. The only reason religion happens. And what religion does best is foster and develop an environment to continue that happening on a volume scale. And because of that, the left hates it. They don't hate religion because you believe in God. They have religion of their own. They believe in global warming. They believe in all this other bullshit. They have plenty of gods. The left is all about dogmatic religion.
You need something to capture culture. And religion, like, often, to agree with you, serves as the best way to do that. Or at least, in most cases, not always, the least violent way to do it.
I wouldn't even say many places.
No,
I'd say,
I mean...
I'm sorry, most places. I would say many, not even most.
I think what you find is that, like, the nations and empires and cultures that have existed without a unifying religion were typically a little more violent. If you look at the Soviet Union, right?
Yes,
they were typically more violent. If you look at Rome, paganistic societies, which still had a degree of cohesion because of their shared pantheon of gods, but they were a bit more violent, right?
I'll put it to you this way. The big thing that the left talks about religious violence was the fucking Crusades.
Yeah, the Crusades. And they went 1-7.
I know.
They went 1-7.
The Crusades.
They lost 6 out of 7 of the Crusades.
And the Crusades killed. I don't. And part of this isn't fair because it's population.
They lost and everyone died. Isn't that? Didn't you? Yeah, you tried to kill people and you were violent and you got fucked up.
Yeah, that's right.
As a result.
And it also didn't. Well, it sort of worked because it kept Islam out of the West for a long time.
It forced it. I mean, Saladin was a bit. I mean, for the time, was moderate anyway.
Yeah, sure.
But it forced them to become more moderate.
Absolutely.
Because they had to say, listen, we're not going to kill all you guys.
And we can't jihad as far as we can.
We don't know what the Christians are talking about. We're not going to do this.
Yes.
Like, it's going to be cool. Just because they had to. What are they going to do? They're going to turn all of their endemic populations against them?
Well, and my point
That's probably a shitty take. I'm not too familiar with ancient history, so sorry for everyone who's screaming at me right now.
Okay, so here's my point.
I have a few friends who really like that shit, and I get so butthurt.
We can talk about this. Well, I'm about to get into it.
Yeah.
People say that religion is violent and it's part of imperialism, blah blah blah. And the best example they have. My point is the best example they have is the Crusades, and it's a shitty example. Just let me finish.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Tiny point. Whereas the overwhelming loss of life, suffering, hell on earth comes from Pol Pot's China, Pol Pot's Cambodia, Mao's China. Genghis Khan's Mongolia, Stalin's Soviet Union. The overwhelming now it's Genghis Khan's a little different because he was a little more religiously tolerant, but that kind of goes to my point too.
It's worth throwing Germany in there too.
Because
it's like they had like kind of fake. They were really like esoteric occultists. They weren't, but they had to preserve the specter of this weird like neo-Christian Catholic thing.
Yes.
And that's why they were able to get the Pope to kind of look the other way on stuff. But they were also, I would throw them in the list
my point is, if you're going to tally up the body count between religious death and between religious death and atheist death, it's not even fucking, and not even just more. It's like a laughably disparate number.
It's a large number.
The thing that people say about religious violence are the Crusades and the Inquisition. Like
the Inquisition.
Are you fucking serious? Are you You have fine. You know what I'll put up against it? I'll go only Soviet pushed deaths in Poland. I'll put that number against all of the religious violence in human fucking history. And you know who's going to win? The Soviets.
Yeah,
and it's not close.
You throw in Ukraine and
it's not even
you throw in the Holodomor and it is.
It's not close. So the idea about top-down religious violence is fucking crazy.
And it links back to, like I said, the MLK stuff, right? Because the segregationist narrative was blacks are dangerous.
Right.
And not even that they're dangerous, but we don't really want them around.
Yeah, we don't want them next
problems. There's all these issues that come from it. We're not different people. And then they showed up in nice suits and nice ties and walked down the street holding hands and singing church hymns.
Yes.
And they got fire hosed and attacked by dogs. And people at home are like, I don't think the black people are the violent ones.
This is my speech thing.
And it would be the same thing in prayer in schools. You send down the marshals to forcibly arrest people. You have the teachers and everyone outside holding hands, not letting them in, and make people watch it on live TV.
Absolutely.
And then make them look at the spin from the liberal media.
Absolutely.
Make them look at the spin from all the media saying why these little kids and teachers who are supposed to be heroes being attacked by the federal government is a good thing.
That's right.
And unfortunately, I think most of the NPCs would just nod ahead and repeat their programming.
Yeah.
But more people would break.
More people would
will break, and it would be another domino in the cathedral's control of American culture falling.
And my point is...
Whereas the January 6th added another domino.
I know.
It added 10 more dominoes to the back end.
This is you're hitting the nail on the head. Yeah. And again, my point isn't like I want you to go buy your gun. Definitely. I want you to do that, and you should do that.
Yeah.
But what I want you to do more is go get married, go to a church.
And here's another piece of that.
Yeah.
Say you are one of the parents in this community, or you're one of the teachers in this community, this hypothetical prayer in school community, and you are one of the people who tries to block off the school from the feds, right?
Yeah.
If you are not willing to buy a gun and some ammo and band together with your community and make plans for if and when the federal government violently cracks down on you, it's not going to be good.
That's right. Yes.
You need to do both.
Absolutely.
I think that's my opinion, is you need to do both. And I'm okay with the civil disobedience, nonviolent civil disobedience taking prominence if you still have a contingency plan, if that's not enough.
Yeah, this is
because
where
I think with the amount of control that the cathedral has, it'll be maybe not because of the internet. Either way, it's going to be difficult, right? And there's always a chance that the nonviolent civil disobedience is not enough, and things escalate. And if you aren't prepared for when things escalate, it's not going to be good. The same way if you don't have a retirement fund.
That's right.
If you work for
you need tactical plan Bs and Cs and Ds.
Plan Bs and Cs and Ds, and you need to know that the people you've chosen to stand with, like when the shit hits the fan, aren't just going to break rank and go home.
Yes, right.
And how we do that, I don't know. But I think a good first step. First step is speech and getting married and having kids and teaching them your values and telling the government to fuck off, and you're not buying what they're selling.
Because you won't break rank if you do that.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is not. I don't want.
Well, I don't know. I think a lot of people are cowardly, and they break rank, and they abandon their greater responsibility for safety or not even safety, but comfort, right? Like I think
we've seen with the people are far more.
We've seen it.
They want to be safe, not free.
They want to,
and they want to have. They want rights, not responsibility.
The average man does not want to be free; he only wants to be safe. And that we've seen so many people cave to, whether it's COVID or government overreach in education or economics, in terms of like shutting down businesses and shutting down schools. Like so many people. Not everyone is an NPC that believes everything on the news and spouts the talking points and like persecutes anyone that breaks from rank. But enough of them know it's a lie and go along with it anyway.
There's a problem.
Because they don't want to lose their job, or they have a mortgage and they have kids and they have to pay for braces, and like that's all very real.
And conservatives are more tolerant.
Yeah, and conservatives are more tolerant. That's all very real. But like at a certain point you need to understand that like this isn't going to stop.
Right.
And that unless you can convince these people to stand with you, the fact that they have kids and a mortgage isn't necessarily going to make them do that. There needs to be something more at stake.
We're arguing at the margins. We're not arguing. We're discussing.
We're agreeing, and we're kind of discussing the pitfalls and benefits of it. And you're a little more positive, as we found on this, and I'm a little more negative on this, in that I think that most people are weak. Right? Like I think
that's for sure.
Like I think most people are weak. Like I try every day to be less weak in a multitude of ways, and I've been doing it for years. And I don't think a lot of people do that. And I don't think people are willing to make a stand when they have everything to lose.
Yeah.
And I understand it.
Well, it's only a stand if you have something to lose. Otherwise, it's just it is.
And I don't know if it's nature or nurture, but the notion of just like bending over and getting fucked because your situation might get a little worse is just anathema to me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if it's because I've always had a problem with authority, or I've always fucking ran my mouth.
Yeah.
Or I've always, I'm a 6 foot tall, 220 pound guy, and unless there's a bigger guy around, there was no one to really shut me up.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Well, and there are also
I don't know what the difference is, but I see so many people who just like give up.
Well, coming from a similar perspective, I do think there are degrees of this, and again, this is where I'm more positive. Is people are so fragile. So Jonathan Haidt, have you read The Coddling of the American Mind?
No, I've heard it's good.
It's good, and Jonathan Haidt's work in general. So it's like we need anti-fragilism. It goes into what you're saying. I could rehash it, but I don't need to right now. Like we have safe space culture, which isn't even just like, we're not even talking about like violently or physically confront people. Like we aren't even, you and I don't have this problem because you and I are are anti-fragile. I say things to people. I say things to people just to disagree with them.
Yeah,
all the time.
Do it all the time.
So we don't have this problem, and I also, it's funny because from like a Myers-Briggs, brain chemistry perspective, there are people who, like, I think it's INTFs. Like INTFs like actually have amygdala issues with like confrontation. Now, like most people don't. So it's, and it is more cultural than it is biological, but sometimes it is biological.
I did mine again. I was wrong. I'm ESPJ. Energetic, sensory, perceptive, something.
Yeah. I don't know what the
It just means you're full of shit.
Yeah.
It just means you're full of shit. P is for perceptive.
Yeah. Okay. I gotcha.
It just means that you're outgoing and you're perceptive and you read things.
Yeah.
And you have enough charisma. To make it seem like you know what's going on.
Yeah.
Whether or not you really do.
Right.
So I think that's spot on.
Yeah. They're pretty good. I mean, they're all imperfect.
But I